very much for making the time and coming out. Let me just give you a little context to why we are doing this, and of course, thanks to Palo Alto Networks for helping us to put this together. A couple of months ago, we had some of the unicorn founders in Bombay come to us and say, guys, so we are Thai Mumbai. They said, folks, listen, we need some good stories coming out of our media and everywhere, because people really don't see what we are building, how much of work goes into our tech products in India. And especially after 2016, the assessment has been that whoever is building tech in India and products in India, we are, if not better than our global counterparts in the US. And of course, the debating point is only Israeli-based founders who still kick our ass when it comes to building products. But I think we are there. And nobody talks about these stories of what startups today are really doing. And FinTech is something which is very, very integral to us, especially being in Mumbai, where we are seeing startups build products for both Bharat and global. And the story is about, today we've seen fantastic products. We are seeing people who have mitigated risks, all kinds of risk. And I think that is something that we wanted to bring out. And thanks to Money Control, we have Chandra Srikanth with us today. She has kindly agreed to come and conduct this for all of us. And we have Sandeep from Palo Alto Networks. I don't know why I get a tongue twister, So what we're going to do is, it's a very simple thing where there are a set of questions which you all know. And between Chandra and Sandeep, Chandra is going to ask business-related questions on trends and stuff like that, and Sandeep is going to ask a little bit of tech-related questions. And the idea is, we'll point out to a couple of people and ask the questions, and then request the whole floor to chime in on that. We are, capturing everybody's thing on camera. Chatham House rules apply here. Nothing will go out. The camera is more to help Chandra, build the script later so that we don't miss out on anything useful that you folks have said. So even in Bombay, we had a thing where one of the founders said, hey, by mistake, I blurted out a client's name. Can you just edit that? So we did that. So feel free, feel normal. I think I want your intelligence and creative juices to flow. We are pretty much open to a divided opinion on things. There is no one way or two way to any answer. So we would love that intellectual tussle, and mostly CTOs bring that to the table, which I'm glad. So without further ado, what I would request everybody to do is maybe a quick line of introduction around the room, plus what your startup does. And then I would then request Chandra and Sandeep to also give their introductions. Housekeeping rule, there are some mics over here where you'll have to push it up, and some mics below, you'll have to hold the thing for at least 4-5 seconds for it to switch on. And please do switch it off once you talk so that we don't get feedback. That's about it. Okay, Kritika, over to you.
Oh, thank you. I'm Kritika Muthukrishnan, and I'm part of an organization called Scriptbox. We are India's largest digital wealth manager. So essentially, we manage about 13,000 crores of people's money. And nothing much more. That's it.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shankar. I am a VP of Engineering in Jupiter Money. Jupiter Money is a neobank, a bank without a branch. There is no physical presence. Everything is through app. And our mission and vision is to kind of ensure there is a financial wellness for our people.
Hey, I'm Sujay, leading the engineering team for Waymo. So Waymo is into sales enablement space, helping sellers to do more and in an easier manner. We primarily work with most of the banks and insurances in India, and expanding into US and Japan as well. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vidya Sridharan. I'm tech co-founder of Discovery and former CTO, now InfoSec head. Discovery is a insurance infrastructure that any start an insurance business within 2 days they can be deployed and they can start. So essentially we are like an AWS for insurance. Thanks.
Hey everyone, I'm Amrita Sarma. I had credit risk at Axio. Axio, we provide consumers checkout finance as well as personal loans. And our largest checkout finance partner is Amazon, so we power Amazon's Amazon Pay Later. So yeah, I think I'm probably the only credit risk person here, so it should be interesting.
Yeah, hi. This is Dhaka, so founder and CEO of Bank Sati Technologies. So we are the tech platform for the financial advisors who can recommend the right financial product to last mile user in tier 2 and lower cities. Until that, we have almost largest financial advisor base in the country. That is 12 lakh. On every pin code across the country, we have advisors.
Hi, this is Harsh. I'm co-founder of Auto. It's a two-wheeler commerce-enabled finance platform. We are providing affordable and flexible financing plans to the consumers to own a two-wheeler. And we are a platform working with multiple lenders on one side and consumers on the other side. Thanks.
Hi. Please log in, come when I...
There are a lot of techies, so they can.
Yeah, hi, I'm Ram Kumar and I head engineering at Cash Free Payments, and we help all of you transact without cash. And there are some customers here and potential customers and partners. So great to see all of you.
Okay, great. Thank you all very much. My name is Chandra Shrikant. I lead the technology startup and new economy vertical at Money Control. Sandeep?
Yeah, so good afternoon everyone. I'm Sandeep Varyam. I'm from Palo Alto Networks. I work as a cybersecurity advisor for Palo Alto Networks for India and SAC. So I work closely with any of the verticals we can name it as. FinTech being one of the most interesting areas. Yeah, I think that's my profile. So I've been here for the last 7 years in this company, overall almost 20 years now in the cybersecurity space. Okay.
Great. Thank you all very much. We are waiting for 2 more people, so we'll start and meanwhile they can join. I think we're waiting for Chaitra from Salt as well as Narendra Babu from Payu. Payu incidentally is in news this week, so it'll be interesting to have him here. But it's a very exciting time for FinTech in India. Internally in Money Control in the last year, we call FinTech RegTech or Regulation Tech, because every few weeks there is some circular either from RBI or some random stuff from SEBI or, this week from MeitY. So in fact, we wrote an insider saying that founders are busy booking flight tickets to Delhi or Mumbai to sort out issues. But I'd just love to get opening comments from y'all on the industry, how things are, is it exciting? Because overall we are hearing pessimistic things about startups and funding winter and so on. But the areas that you power, functions that you power, if you can give us a sense of, how things are today, has the industry matured, is there more compliance, can we expect more regulation going forward? Maybe Amrita, you can start and, I'll get opening comments from the others as well.
Sure. Sure. So I think, firstly, just to answer the most obvious question, I think FinTech's still a very exciting space, and I'm sure everyone here will agree. We are a credit underserved country in general, whether that's for lending, insurance, like whatever you take. I think in general, financial services, we're very underserved as a country, wealth management, whatever domain you pick, right? In terms of the regulation specifically to, do we expect more compliance? I think, actually, like having seen, so I've worked in North America in financial services as well. I think we have a very mature regulator, right? Like all regulators, they run like at a lag to industry and cutting edge. But they're a very mature regulator from the point of view of the intent of protecting the end user. Right?
It's a very consumer-centric.
Yeah, and from the intent of protecting the overall ecosystem from systemic risk. So I think from a regulator's point of view, I think we have a very mature regulator. I do think at the same time, if you look at the ecosystem, right, fintechs are tiny compared to the lakhs of crores that most banks have, like HDFC's book is 14 lakh crores, right? So we're all small. I think we bring a lot of innovation to the table, which the country does need to increase penetration and everything that we talked about. I do think at the same time that it is not a regulatorily level playing field. So I, as a player, would expect there to be more regulation, because there is still, we always joke that RBI circulars are in Shakespearean English, like they're open to interpretation. So everyone, and like that's part of the innovation, that's part of the way fintechs run, tries to interpret it their own ways. That I think is still okay, but there is still a lot of like players that are playing in the gray, and I think it's fair to the end customer to have a regulatorily level playing field. So if you ask me, my personal opinion, 100% there's more regulation coming, right? But at the same time, I feel like it's actually in the right spirit. And if as an operator or a startup or whatever that is, if you are designing the right things to solve the end customer's needs, you'll be fine.
That's interesting. So in fact, many founders we've been speaking to this week, we thought, there will be a lot of angst and anger. Why are we getting so many circulars? But surprisingly, many of them said that, this was coming and there will be more because, as you said, there are some players playing fast and loose. Unfortunately, others end up paying the price, but I guess that's the way it's going to be. Vidya, do you want to add to what Amrita said? You can use her mics. Yeah.
Thank you. So, completely, I was just nodding my head for every point she said. So, fintech is the place where I think India's maximum innovation comes, because I think the money is the underlying thing for enabling a country, other than food and health and all that. So, I think it's a very exciting time to be in fintech because there is a tech in the fin. It's so the technology is so evolving. Not just at infrastructure level, but at, we will soon come to a trust system level, which is what is commonly called blockchain. As long as, there are 5 other guys who says that you are doing things right, you don't need to get approval from each of the 5 other institutions. That situation is soon going to come. Secondly, it's not like I have particular views about a particular government, but I think right now the level of digital presence, even of the staff I have at home, the help staff, is just amazing. Now, are we into this George Orwellian world where everything is being tracked? We don't know. I don't mind being tracked as long as, they know I'm a good person. Track me, no problem. So everything is going to be tracked. It's just going to increase more and more and more. So given that now the data for fintech is of utmost value, but of course we need to know what data to pick and what is noise and what is signal, basically.
Yeah.
Secondly, regulatory stuff. I think as an ecosystem, we are becoming better and better. There's recently, I think, in the winter session of the parliament, I don't know if it's passed or not, the new cybersecurity bill has come. And we all have already geared up for that and finished our audits and everything and got the certificates coming. But essentially regulation, as she said, yes, the legal is the language is very difficult to follow. And both RBI guidelines and, we are into IRDAI space, both, they just call it guidelines, but they are not at all guidelines. They are really stipulations. But the English, there is all very rounded off statements and it's subject to interpretation. So CTOs like me and InfoSec heads like me have this arduous work, to
read
break
between
it.
the lines.
Correct.
Yeah.
True. But however, I think the government should take the ecosystem, and I mean the ecosystem, see the cloud ecosystem is a very big factor. Whether you are with Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud or Axio, these are largely the 3 ones. All 3 will have to grow with the government's expectations. I work closely with AWS, I'm sure it's with GCP and Azure, but I was just telling Shankar that yesterday I was surprised. AWS has a whole lot of so-called security policies that if you apply, that is for RBI alone, and I have the link here, I'll share that. So it's so easy for CTOs like me, it's so easy, my God, I just apply it, it's going to tell me where I'm lacking and where I'm, okay. But will the RBI, has RBI approved what AWS says is needed for RBI? That I don't know.
Very interesting.
And RBI is a superset of what IRDA and many other regulations are. So will these subsets agree if I have crossed, if I crossed this hurdle? I don't know. But yeah, essentially I think things are looking very good right now. There's no need at all for any despair. Things are looking absolutely.
I think SEBI is also coming up with its own cloud policy or the cybersecurity policy. Jiten and Sumit, do you guys want to give your opening thoughts?
For we are not in the regulator side.
Safe.
You should be lucky,
Yeah.
but you should also be prepared.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, we are in the financial product distribution side, or our goal is to increase the penetration. Like we all know, we have very less penetration. As Amrita said, like in credit card, we have 3 credit card in India on 100 people, but in USA there is 330 credit cards. So there is a huge gap. So basically, we figure out that that penetration gap for every product, and we build the platform how we can serve the right financial product to last mile user, even like metro city, even tier 1, tier 2, and lower cities also. So we firstly we started with the tech platform for the financial advisors. So and so through the technology they can get the right financial product list with some set of data of the customer. So they can recommend the right financial products to that customer through the personal touch. And already we in last 18 months of operation, we onboarded around 12 lakh advisors. That is almost equivalent to LIC agents. Second thing, penetration, definitely we are increasing. We are the 3rd largest credit card distributor in the country after Paisa Bazaar and Bank Bazaar. In last 12 months of credit card distribution started. Now we are bringing more products, like we got the IRD license also. So in that technology side, we are building the algorithms or the AI ML we are using to like suggest the right product to the customer, basically.
So Chandra, maybe like I can add a point on the regulations, right? So while I agree the right intentions of regulations and obviously to kind of protect the end customers' money and stuff, right? But I also have some basic questions about how does the regulators think about the tech in general, right? So that is something which I still believe that, okay, they can be much more open-minded to kind of enable the technology companies to kind of, explore new avenues and stuff like that. Because maybe I have less visibility on what's happening on the background, because every time the regulations comes in, it really hits us hard, right?
We know.
And the future is all about technology, and we are also here to kind of serve our end customers and obviously kind of enable users and also like reach out to the large volume of people also, right? So in that sense, how does the regulators think about the tech in general? Are they still having this old mindset of like, okay, protecting everything, right, what they can think of, then enabling the tech companies to kind of really like explore and innovate on behalf of our customers? See, we cannot survive without our customers being happy. So end of the day, we are also kind of equally responsible to kind of protect our customers. So if that's the case, how does the regulators are helping us? That is something which is still, it's a gray area for me.
So,
I just want to,
just one observation at least that I have, got from fintechs is that, yes, there is, some level of arbitrary sense that people get in the way they behave, but they are also more open to dialogue, is the sense that I get, that, that if you are able to put your points across to RBI in a very cogent fashion, that this is what we are doing, this is why we are doing it, they are willing to lend a listening ear. At least this is the sense I got. And the other thing is, I think the big banks feel that fintechs have had it too easy, so they want the RBI to kind of regulate more, is the other sense that I got. I mean, I don't know if you guys have heard it differently, because one founder told me that, we heard from the regulator that you guys have it tough. Just imagine what the banks are going through, because their level of compliance is, 10x or 20x. So you have to kind of level up to that.
Yeah, we are also bank in a way, right? So we work with the bank, so regulated entity, and every complaints what they have to kind of adhere to, we also go through it. So I know the pain of it. I think the only challenge here is maybe like the pace at which the regulators are going. Maybe that is the only thing. Like I think.
But I think regulation always lacks innovation in any market.
Yep.
I just had a couple of follow-up questions on this. Maybe I just want to pick all of your thoughts. So one is on the guidelines part, and I think ma'am also said saying that it's tough to understand what is written in that. So at a very high level, right? Maybe from your thoughts point of view, what changes can come in from a policy guidelines? In the sense, one is RBI is telling that this is a regulatory, what has to come in. So if you look at it from a flip side point of view, what is the easiest way from your perspective, in the sense, what change is best from a policy guidelines? Second thing, I think what I also think, maybe I'm completely wrong, maybe that's where I need all of your intelligence, is we also are bringing up with this data protection bills. Right, and I think what Vidya said is, in terms of from a data point of view, that is absolutely critical. And I think there's a lot of works which is working on the regulatory side, which is connecting back with the data protections bills as well. So maybe quick thoughts from you in terms of what can change, Shankar, from a policy guidelines. One is on the regulatory side, that is something which we can't control. But what could be the easiest way to change? And secondly, yeah.
So I think instead of me saying like what can change, because it's like a very large space, broad one. I think what I would say is like maybe there could be more transparency, how we are kind of approaching it, because like it hits us hard suddenly.
It was so confusing, right? No one knew what was happening, why it was happening. So yeah, I agree.
We were working with some of the regulated entities to kind of launch a feature like which is more of international transactions. You know, between these two regulated entities there is a confusion, right? How to kind of interpret these guidelines?
Which would be RBI and
yeah, right. I think, I mean, no, like regulated entity in the sense like two different partners we work with, right? Both partners interpreted the same regulation in a very different way, right? And that really put us hold on launching that feature completely, because there's a confusion between what is the right thing. They again reaching out to the RBI to kind of really understand what it is, right? I think my uber point is that how transparent they can be. See, FinTech cannot be stopped, right? I think it's going to change the way we are operating, and nobody can stop it. But whether it's going to take 10 years or it's going to take 10, 20 years, I think that is what these regulations can control, right? In my opinion, because I am from Amazon. Like I know how e-commerce has changed India drastically in the last 1 decade, and I strongly believe that FinTech is a space which is going to change the way we kind of operate in terms of money for next 10 years or so, right? If that's the case, how fast the regulators are catching up with these technologies and then enabling us is what it is, right? I'm not saying that we should compromise on things, but run along with us. Run along with us. It's not that we are running fast and then we see that regulators are pulling us back. Yeah. Rather, we want them to run along with us. I think that's my uber point.
Okay. You wanted to also...
Yes.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. So, coming back to your previous question about... so basically what I feel is for fintechs, especially of our size, which is not as big as other fintechs, the main challenge that we face is there is a business pressure which is about growing and doing the business, and to enable that with following the compliances, you need certain tools, certain better options which are already accessible to the bigger banks or bigger institutions which are more regulated, but you don't have access to. For example, the account aggregator system. We do not have access to it because we are not a regulated entity, but other banks and all of them have. Now, expecting fintechs to innovate the customer journey, make the processes simpler without having access to those tools which are available to banks, how do we make sure that we are providing the best customer journey to the consumers? So I think before bringing those regulations and before bringing those policies in place, there needs to be some guidelines or some access to these kind of tools which should be available with fintechs as well, so that they are able to better compete with the bigger giants as well.
That's interesting. The barriers to entry for fintech. You want to add something?
Yeah, so I had a few points, and we being a newly part of the regulated entity, we have a
you got a PAPG
principal PAPG license, and I think it's a very good thing for us because we turn that into innovation, right? So everyone can't handle regulation, we help you handle regulation, right? So cards have to be tokenized, so we have a tokenization service. You don't have to worry about it. We recently launched a co-lend solution where all your money going out has to go through escrow accounts. There's going to be a hassle to manage all those things, right? So we'll take care of those things for you, build a platform where regulation is taken care for you, and that's I think our approach to this. And all of us accept regulation, so GDPR. We may not question that, right? We may not question SOC 2, etc. Right? So I think it's high time that India innovates in regulation in a different sense, right? Like we are increasing the barrier to entry for foreign firms into India, right? So that's going to also spur innovation from India. And I think we should be known for having the end customer safeguarded. And if we can make great products that are passing these regulatory things, now other countries should be able, oh, you pass the regulatory things of RBI in India, we welcome you to different countries across the world, right? So I think that's a great thing. Maybe it's like if you can pass the JE, then you can go places. So same thing, I think it's going to change the world going forward. I think regulation is good, and in a way we welcome it, and yeah, we'll adapt to it.
Okay, so we have Mr. Narendra Babu, the CTO of PU. Hi, Chandra Shrikant from Money Control, and Sandeep from Palo Alto. Very timely entry. They were just talking about regulation in fintechs. Would you like to add something from your end?
Yeah, I think good and bad in the sense that, you need a regulator to protect different groups. The hope is that as both the industry and the regulator work together, we make the rules more clearer, like make it more consistent. Like, I think it's an ongoing thing. We should start working together and make sure that we do that. And it's also important that as companies start growing business, right, it's easy to get carried away with growth and focus on, like, maybe controls are not necessarily the first thing that we look at, right? Maybe this is a takeaway for all the companies out there too. When you start a company, especially in the fintech space, you start looking at it from a regulatory perspective from day one, right? So, and not as an afterthought. It becomes a lot more expensive, in many cases catastrophic. Right? So that's a thing that maybe we should keep in mind.
So I'll slightly shift over, slightly on the technology space as well, right? Because it's become serious. So I'll try to make it from a technology angle. I'll try to keep it as an open question. I think, Kritika, I know you're a big fan of AI. And I think we have been hearing AI now the last 3 months, and ChatGPT has blown away, right? In the sense, the way in which that is being consumed or being talked about is much, much larger. So just your thoughts in terms of from an AI as a concept, because I'm sure you would have a lot of research on that. So your thoughts on that, and how come these kind of platforms, in the sense especially what can affect your business or what can help your business in a much more better way? So maybe your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So let me start with a little bit about the different types of players and how they are using technology, right? So you do have the traditional players, and somebody mentioned, right? So HDFC Bank, SBI, these are the biggies. They still manage most of the money. And then you have the digital players coming up. And even in the digital players, there are like a wide variety of people, right? So there are some who are mainly transactional. And these guys are mainly trying to use technology to make sure I'll make it as efficient as possible. Like I'll make the customer experience simple. But the real delight comes when you say, okay, a lot of wealth management is about advisory, right? So where do you put your money? What should my assets, like what should my asset allocation be like? Do I need insurance, right? So your finance and money is a way to live a good life and not the other way around, right? And that's really where AI starts playing a fantastic role. And I think there are organizations that are beginning to explore this. And I think the account aggregator is a great step, and I think you mentioned it, in terms of getting a more richer profile of the customer. So really where I think the firms who are doing investment management and advisory, and I think other fintechs also are headed towards, is what I call getting to a segment of one. So what a customer who had, let's say, 10 crores could get as a personal relationship from one individual who was devoting, say, 20% of his time to that person, a person who today has 20 lakhs can get with AI models. So you can really do hyper personalization. You can figure out so much about that customer. So for example, there are customers who get, I often see who get jittery every time the market falls, right? So they'll immediately sell, the market goes up, they'll immediately buy. It's the worst thing that they can do for their portfolio. How do you help those customers, right? Or there are customers who just don't know where should I put the money, right? I see customers looking at five different websites open, looking at where do you put your money, how do I manage, what assets. It's a confusing space, particularly when you're managing your wealth. So really helping those customers, figuring out how each customer, and that's really the journey that we are in, because we are an advisory play in digital space. And so we are really helping you using AI. So chat GPT to some extent, it helps everyone. It's lovely, it's fantastic. And I think it's just going to get better, generative AI. But I think even before getting to something like generative AI, just simple AI models which really help you figure out what should be the next best thing for this customer in a journey. So it's like you are sitting in front of the customer and talking to him, an expert is sitting and talking to him and helping him manage his money step by step. And that's really the journey that we are in, and that's really the role I see in AI.
And Chandra, your view on that?
Narendra.
Narendra, sorry, I'm sorry.
Okay. In our context, we are a payment aggregator, right? So for us, a big opportunity in using AI is in the context of fraud and risk management, right? So here again, kind of ties up into compliance and also protecting the end customer. So how do we make sure that while we provide a payment platform, how do we make sure that this is not used for any abuse, right? So there's no money laundering or bad merchants getting in for trying to hurt the customer, right? So starting from even looking at KYC, the websites that they give, how do you, the challenge for all of us is scale, right? So at scale, if you want to validate a customer is really a legitimate customer, it's not so simple, right? So obviously you use intelligence there, and this is a nice fit for that, right? So you make sure that you're really getting the nice merchants out there, and then once they're into the system, how do you real-time monitor the transactions and make sure that they are indeed kosher transactions? This is a big challenge, and it's also something that we have to make sure that as and when we note something abnormal, we report out to the government, right? So these are very good use cases for us to kind of start using AI and make sure that we don't allow any of the bad actors to be in the system.
Thank you. Thanks.
Actually, I wanted to understand if any of you are using ChatGPT right now in your business and in what way. I was just curious. Because yesterday we did the story on how a lot of edtech startups are using ChatGPT for various things, from assessment to content creation to founders writing emails and memos and everything. So if any of you are using
use cases are endless.
I'd love to.
Or I would like to share. Yeah,
sure, Sachin.
Again, I don't know if it really works out, but thought is this actually. So part of why, big part of Waymo is to help our customers to actually customize our solutions to their specific needs, especially with large banks like HDFC, ICICI. No matter how breadth of the product is so huge, even then actually there'll be certain legacy things that they would have built, and we will still end up doing a lot of customizations for them actually. So, but can we leverage ChatGPT kind of a platform to train all our custom footprint and make that custom code auto-generated? Because the use cases in custom work is, if we see 80-20, it repeats a lot of time actually. So today we rely on our internal teams or partners to actually do the customizations. It's not the core platform where typically a lot of involvement of data or algorithms will be there. So it will be relatively fixed set of use cases we will end up doing specific to clients. So can we leverage some of these deep neural networks to even train certain code and auto-generate the code and make it easy? At least like, hey, if I tell you the use case, I should be able to auto-generate the code, and then of course we can always build on top of it. That's one of the things that we are trying to do at POC, and let's see how it goes actually. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
If I can add to that.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think ChatGPT, the first place you will see a lot of its application is in actually programming. Programmers have just taken to it like anything, right? So you can see it everywhere. And you already had
just to understand.
You want to write a code for anything. You always used to go to, for example, Stack Overflow and say, somebody solve this problem. You no longer go to Stack Overflow. You go to ChatGPT and say, hey, help me solve this problem. It gives you a piece of code. right? And then you take that and you adopt it. So similarly, even say marketing teams, right? So our marketing team, we had our 11th anniversary sometime back. So they decided that we're going to, just a month back, so they said, we've got to write a poem about Scriptbox. And they had ChatGPT write the poem, right? So I think it's a wonderful tool. There's still way to go, right? If you ask it serious questions, I think I asked it, okay, where would you ask me to invest my money? And seriously, after 15 different questions, I still couldn't get it to answer it, right?
You would have been happy if it said Scriptbox.
So, well, I did ask what Scriptbox returns were, and it gave me a number which is significantly higher than any other player in the market. So I was happy with that. But so I think there's going to be a lot of application in marketing, communications, and programming first. I think in other areas, people will still need to explore and figure out where it's happening, right?
So I was saying that in a small way, I'm encouraging folks to see what is happening is, especially with earlier, when you hire engineers, it was an assumption that they'll take some time to familiarize themselves with business, right? So now you no longer have that luxury. You want to understand all the jargon in a fairly quick amount of time, right? So all these businesses, like the roles get blurred, right? So you're no longer given a clear requirement. You're told, okay, this is what it is, and people are supposed to know a lot about that particular business. So to come up to speed, ChatGPT is a good way to understand, like if somebody is coming into FinTech, at least when I came, I was new, right? So Google still gives, but it's relatively harder to piece them all together and make sense out of it. So a great use case is to understand this domain like fairly quickly. I think that kind of gives you a bird's eye view, and then you can provide.
I think on a lighter note, I think what you're saying, used much more for programming. And I think a few of my friends who works for MNCs, they were saying, like the people who are freshers there, and if you want to write a code, it's not there on Google, but it's there on ChatGPT. It actually gives me the output.
Yeah, as an engineer, I was also curious how it works, and then I also kind of gave few programs to kind of see whether it's able to kind of debug. And I was really surprised. Like, obviously, it made errors, and then I was keep on saying that you are wrong, and it's keep on learning in an iterative way. Like, it's finally said that yes, I'm wrong. Like, okay, this is the right answer. And in fact, I was talking to some of my engineers, and they were like copy pasting the code and asking ChatGPT to kind of optimize the code for them. Like whether how effectively it is able to kind of optimize.
As if he gave a piece of code and said refactor it in a much more modular way, and like it got it bang on.
In one of the.
So are roles already becoming redundant? Like if ChatGPT is
No, I think his point is extremely important. I think especially in a B2B space today, we have from the time a customer look for certain things till it comes to the developer and implements that. We have solutions people, we have pre-sales, we have customer success teams actually, and then it comes to the engineering teams actually, and then it goes back in the same loop to them. Imagine ChatGPT helps people to understand the business then and there and ask any question that they get from the customer, both business-wise as well as technical, especially which they're not really ready with most of the times, which ChatGPT can help. And imagine the low-code platforms getting slowly extended to actually, hey, NLP translated to a bit of a code and our platforms understand. So what a customer is asking in front of him, if I just type and get the work done in front of them. The number of people, the translation layers, and I completely agree that it's not about removing of the roles, but it's about the customer experience can get extremely better actually, because we'll be able to solve a lot of things in front of them then and there. Yeah.
I have one example on a lighter way. Our DevOps guys, they're the most technical guys, and they had to send mails to major banks for our customers that certain things have been deployed and in this particular environment. So imagine the technical specifications there. And I'm just seeing this guy sent a mail with the right punctuation, extraordinary English, and what indentation and everything. And my God, how did you do this, man, with all the tech specs there? And he says, I just asked ChatGPT and it gave me, I just copy pasted. I was astounded. I think you might not lose roles, may or may not lose roles, but I think a new role will come of that, our person who can query ChatGPT. Because still learning how to query is, it doesn't give you the answer the first thing.
In case of mail, so just I got a mail from an investor VC. So just I write down like how I can reply for this question actually. That given me exact or very beautiful answer, and I said that same to the VC.
So was the VC happy?
Yeah, super awesome.
That's the most important question.
So
I'm sure the VC didn't figure out.
So that was super awesome. That was not possible by me. That answer, and there are a lot of other AI tools also available. So like in video content, you can ask to create the small videos, like a reel kind of. So that AI tool can cut the video as per the required reel, like small reels you can cut out from the whole video. So there are a lot of other tools. In marketing, it is super awesome actually. In content side, you can even I asked to ChatGPT for Paisa Bazaar B plan. Exactly, I got that content.
So you're using it for competitor. Okay, this is scary. It's like for competitor intelligence.
Yeah. Business plan you can get.
I think this is where the regulatory things are required, I think, actually.
No, maybe we can also ask, how to respond to meeting, how to respond to...
I don't know. So there are some one or two big companies of USA. So there was some function, and I was not able to understand how they made. Then I asked to ChatGPT about that function, like that company and function. That given me exact methodology how they build.
Oh,
Nice. So, yeah, Harsh.
So basically, we also have a couple of use cases which we have started exploring, and I think it is not related to what we spoke about till now, but we are trying to use it to build our top of the funnel. For example, so basically, our platform users come, see different bikes, and there is an assisted model where people can talk to our bike expert about certain things, right? And that is time limitation कि 10 से 8 के बीच में हो सकता है, right? Now what we are trying to build is कि we build a simple chat window where people can question anything about any bike, and ChatGPT is able to answer those questions better than a human being. And obviously it does not offend brands as well, because it is diplomatic at the same time. So if you ask Activa versus Axis, it will give you a very good answer. If you say I am 4 feet 5 inch tall, which vehicle is perfect for me, it would say Activa. If you say 6 feet tall, it would say Axis. So all those things
So
which
how
are required.
privacy? Can I say whose vehicle this belongs to, or what's the
These are
bank
new
account
vehicles.
number of Mukesh Ambani? Can I ask like that?
You can ask, but I don't know
I
what
don't
answer.
Curious.
It's at least ChatGPT specifically, from what I understand, is it's generative AI, but it's trained, like whatever data that it's gotten is not live. It's trained on a bunch of data up until 2021. So if you ask it something about 2022, it probably doesn't know. Probably make up something. But I think Google's like Bard is going to be real time. But again, it's whatever information is available. It's not, it can't like manufacture.
But you can get a lot of information about Mukesh Ambani.
That yes. Probably like date of birth and maybe PAN number and stuff.
Called ChatSonic, which is live. Which where it's paid, so it's called ChatSonic, and we are exploring that for our own customer service and things like that. ChatGPT has its limitations because one is the timing, the other is because it's continuously learning. If you tell it that this answer is wrong, it tries to change the answer, which might not always be the right thing. And so I think ChatSonic has overcome some of those things.
No, but 100% I agree with what you were saying earlier, which is content creation, at least the first draft of content creation is much easier.
Yeah.
I think a lot of, at least like, one of the, I'm sure, pet peeves that most people have here is that internally documentation is not great, right? One of the other things we're trying to see is like, can you just give it a bunch of information, bullets, and it creates a document that you can then like sense check and do, because it's not as time consuming, right? So that's an interesting one. And then of course customer service, like customer interactions, is the other one for now. But I do agree with Sujay that like it's not replacing jobs, at least right now.
That was a very large conversation. So I'll slightly shift gears and then I'll pass it to you.
Sure.
So one question to Ram. So from a platform point of view, if you look at across, I think all of us are platforms, right? So and by default there is a concept called secure by design. So in the sense that's by default in your DNA. So from your perspective, in the sense, what what actually companies should do, in the sense from your, which way you're representing cash flow, right? So why secure by design, how are you doing that? Or if you can share some thoughts on this and effective that we can use.
Sure. So yeah, I'll go back to our being a regulated entity, and every quarter we have vulnerability assessment and audits, and so we have to really be secure, because we are the first or the platform, right? FinTech OS is what we are, powering everything else on above. So if we are going to be not secure, it's going to not be helpful to all the customers of ours, right? So we have put in a lot of changes as we grow really fast, and it's been a challenge balancing all of this, but we've got to do this. So we start with security design reviews very early in the cycle, even before it's part of the design review, right? Like I do my software design, I do my thing, and we've taken off from the Yahoo. So I had worked at Yahoo, and their paranoid program is really awesome. And so we have a central paranoid team, and then we have local paranoids in different teams, right? So security is not going to be the domain of a few people in sitting somewhere, but we want that to be sort of assimilated by every team. And so we have local paranoids, and then they understand, right, what are the things that can break, what can I do preventively, etc. And then we are also doing the DevSecOps in the CI/CD pipeline to catch the vulnerabilities before it hits the production. And then, of course, we have a lot of things on cloud security. We take advantage of what is available in different cloud vendors, as well as go for certain vendors who provide value-added services across the board, right? They can take information from different clouds, aggregate that, and give us the sort of score and risk in different things. And then it has to be complemented with IT security also, right? Recently we've been seeing every other day, like we have a blog things that are posted every other day, like 2 to 3 security breaches are being posted by our paranoids team and others, and how people are getting tricked into sharing their password, right? I might have the awesome security in the cloud, but if there's one weakest link somewhere, who, right, in their busy schedule, they are tricked into believing that this is some genuine thing that I have to go reset my password, etc. Right? How do we sort of protect this whole thing from IT to people to cloud? It's sort of challenging, but we got to do it, and I think we are on the journey, really doing well, and definitely more to do, because it's things keep on changing, new vulnerabilities get figured out. It's a cat and mouse game, and I think we are playing it well, and yeah, we look to help from other companies who provide, you can use AI to detect these fraudulent attempts happening at the cloud layer or in your laptops, etc. So I think that's another place where AI can help secure our products.
Thanks, Ram. Sujay, may also take your views on that. And just an add-on question to that, to you, Sujay. So, because by default, this is all cloud developed platforms, so in the sense you're running massively on the cloud. And what challenges also do you see from a cloud perspective? In the sense, you may be multi-cloud, you may be single cloud. I'm sure you are multi-cloud. But what kind of challenges do you foresee today? In the sense, and how are you trying to avoid those issues?
I mean, security standpoint.
Yeah, overall.
You know, I think a lot of the stuff what Ram is saying, I think, is extremely important from design reviews being part of the considering a lot of the security aspects. I think most of the real security stuff can be identified at that level. And going back to the other point Ram is making, actually, security should be like a part of our life versus like as a separate function. I think that's how the change should start, according to me. The moment we start looking at it as a separate function and they have a certain roles and responsibilities, we'll only think about it at the end of everything, and by the time we might be at the edge of doing things and the things get delayed, or we'll let things go into a certain phase where impact can be seen higher. And one of the philosophy that we have followed, which I think will help, is a zero trust architecture in security, and that definitely really helped us, though it's not, I would say, not the most developer friendly, because a lot of times the access restrictions will be on the higher side compared to what ideally it should be for a developer. But I think if we do it from day zero and tell the story well to the developers, they will understand why we are doing this. I think they will support this well, but we should never relax, I think, on security. There's nothing called, we are good on security. Like you said, patches keep coming in, OS patches, like they will never stop. And hence regulatory has to keep making new amendments because new breaches are coming in. And so it's a part of life actually. So we should not get stressed on security as a big thing. We should believe that actually it will never go away. And as we grow, I feel, especially in the cloud ecosystem, the cloud security also has improved significantly in the form of good tools or devices that are at our disposals to leverage. And I think we should invest a lot. There is no, it's not something that we can build everything on our own. As a young startup, it might not be possible, but as we keep growing, our budget for security also has to be looked at consciously and to be balanced, not going overboard, but a lot of things at the network layer, a lot of things at the data security layer, and especially the one thing that that I felt has significantly impacted in the last 3-4 years is that open source softwares are getting into the end of life much more quickly than before. And I think it's a very good way for them to make money, right? You can't keep upgrading softwares actually, like be it a standard Node.js. I mean, it's getting upgraded every 6 months to 8 months, MySQLs, Mongo databases. They just want us to get back onto the commercial version of it actually. So I think that's the reality. It's better to embrace the reality and move towards managed services is one other thing that we have started getting into, though we're like heavily on open source versions, but start getting into the managed services will save a lot of time for additional security and invest in a lot of tools like the next gen firewalls and definitely go for external audits regularly, though all the DevSecOps, all the pipelines that we have to do, it's like a table stakes, but keep getting the external audit happening every 6 months or 1 year at least actually. And for us, we are it's a little bit more stringent because most of the banks that we work with us, they do their own audit also every year. So it's roughly like we go to like 10 to 12 audits every year along with our own audit. So that will also help encouraging your clients, be flexible with the clients to do their own audits. That will also keep us on our toes always actually. We should be open to that rather than closing the door on that front actually. And I think cross data center goes back to the regulatory as long as we have proper guidance from the regulatory, hey, have the data within the geography, like in case of Indian banks and all that. I think cross data center versus a single data center or multi-data center support, honestly, we haven't observed like a significant difference in managing security. So, but we should choose tools that does not tie us to one data center. So, especially between Azure and AWS. But I think 4 years back we had a lot of problem in identifying those tools because many of them are cloud dependent. But today most of the good tools, be the SIS or most of them actually firewalls, we have like cloud native. Most of them are available from one place to another. And in fact, somebody mentioned about that RBI checklist with AWS. Yeah. So I remember in 2016 when we were working with 15 or 16, sorry, when they first launched in India, we provided the RBI checklist to AWS and they were like, what is this actually, right? And out of 150 questions, I think we finally have to say yes, but otherwise it doesn't fly, but very few are really there actually. And even Azure actually. So they come up a long way to fill all the 150 to 200 questionnaires that banks come up with. So we are ready. Clouds are much more ready than before. So I think embracing cloud from a security standpoint is a lot more easier, including the regulatory than before is our understanding. But yeah, I think embrace more tools and be on the toes. Never keep that as a separate thing. I think this should be part of our day-to-day conversations, and budget should be allocated no matter what happens on the other side, actually, because I think just take one more moment to talk about the initial topic we started with. I think I strongly believe in the fact that I worked in 2 different companies before Waymo. One primarily in e-commerce. We used to support eBay way back in 2000, early, one of the first companies to support eBay. And second is 247, primarily in the customer service space, used to support most of the big fintechs like Capital One and all that. Common thing that has happened in both the places is that we had breaches. And we had a data breach and one there is a security breach. Whenever this incident has happened, we were about to acquire another company and the reverse has happened in one case, just in 1 year time. And in the other case, actually, the business loss was almost like close to 30 to 40% because no fintech want to stay with us. So I feel from that perspective, regulatory is extremely, extremely important because it gives us an immense sense of actually how we should be ready to make sure there is no adverse event that we can get into. I think that way, with all the important things that we have to improve upon, like involving the industry, more agile, all that definitely stays. But I feel regulatory gives us a very good direction of actually how to make sure that we don't get into an adverse event. Because I think it doesn't happen every day, but I have seen 2 instances where whenever it happens, the impact can be catastrophic.
Yeah.
Like all the hard work that we have put for like 7-8 years, like within overnight wiped out. And hence I think security investment and is a massive, massive thing actually. And in cloud era where data is getting to the cloud, it's actually, because it's a different network, it's already bad fundamentally. So beyond the toes is this way I look at it actually. Yeah.
I was actually curious about, the cost of cloud. I mean, there were many startups who said, cloud costs contribute to a significant part of their operations and how in the current environment they will look at optimizing that, to spend lesser money. Is it something that you can do? Is it something that, you are doing? Okay.
Yeah, I think one good part is this AWS and any of the cloud service providers also keep on innovating on how to kind of optimize on the cost. If you look at it, like one of the key thing what we need to kind of do is adapt to the technologies what they are coming up with, because the more and more we embrace the latest technologies what some of these cloud providers are providing to you, that is going to definitely help you to kind of optimize the cost. The other thing which is based on my experiences also is often we look at the scale as something like, okay, horizontally scaling or infrastructure, right? I think that is something which we need to kind of change the way we are looking at scale, right? Scale is not about just horizontally scaling, right? I think this is something which I kind of do it in my organization, something which I learned from Amazon also is constantly investing your energy on re-architecting your systems too. So recently, like I can give an example, like where we have a huge interest credit that happens on end of the every quarter, and there's like kind of a 10x of a traffic, right? The easiest way is to kind of do like on the day, like when the interest credit happens, scale your systems like horizontally, and then one day, okay, maybe like few K of dollars. So it's easy to kind of solve it, and then next day you kind of downsize. It's okay, everything's good. That's not how we approached it actually. When we face this problem, we took an action item to kind of look into every bottleneck we are seeing inside our systems. We went back and re-architect our systems. For example, like I can give like, there are certain calls that's happening, like one customer call in turn ends up like 20 different calls internally. And you don't need to have a 20 different calls, and every call is going to cost you, right? So how do you kind of optimize this? Because over a period of time, like, I mean, I used to kind of tell this, like today, whatever you call it as a microservice, in 3 years it's become a big monolithic service if you don't invest on it. So then it's going to kind of cost you a lot of money, right? So always spend some time to kind of re-architecting your systems, questioning your assumptions, what you made maybe a year back. So today, if you develop something, you make a lot of assumptions, right? How the system's supposed to work. But that may not be true after 6 months down the line or 1 year down the line. I think this investment has really helped us not to kind of even horizontally scale even 1%, and still we are able to kind of successfully handle the 10x of traffic on that particular day.
Is it easy to ask for budgets to re-architect systems when, people are talking about cost cutting and this and that?
No. So I think
Not just budget in terms of money, budget in terms of time.
Yes, I think, see, the point here is...
The long-term game is exactly what he said. But typically what you see is a lot of people make the call,
Yeah, that's what we should not do. See, because tech is always going to tech investments is always going to be for the long term, right? If you don't invest now, like every quarter...
Popular or...
See, obviously, business and product disagrees with you always, because they want to keep on showing the results. But we need to push back. I think...
like a dinosaur. Optimizing queries, what's wrong? Let's get more meetings.
Yeah, I think that's, see, for example, you execute a mandate like every day, morning, right? Look at the kind of queries the engineers write. There is always a scope to optimize. I'll tell you, my experience in Amazon, every year they say, until unless you optimize your resource by 10%, yeah.
Response is, do you know caching? Have you heard of caching? Just auto scale.
Yeah, no. I think that's why I gave you a very specific example of what we gone through recently. There is definitely a scope for keep on optimizing your resource. And every time engineers, I agree with you that engineers says everything is optimized. And if you push them hard, they come back with a new solution where we can optimize further. So this is it's not a one-time activity. You have to constantly push. I tell my leadership that every quarter, give me at least 15 to 20% of the bandwidth. Just invest on how to optimize my solutions going forward. That I ask for it.
Yeah, our CTO has a similar solution to buffer. He had buffer to every quarter being in which he, because I don't know how else you do it, right?
Yeah.
So just to give you a little bit perspective, clearly in the current environment, it's been a focus, I think, almost of every company, because it is a big cost. When you look at it's not the biggest, but it is a significant enough chunk, right? And one of the ways that we got some opportunity to re-architect stuff is one, I think easily you can shave off 5% just by looking around. I don't think it's difficult. And when people start seeing that some savings are coming, then you get some leeway to do more projects, right? So also if you are able to make some of those projects in terms of, we often make the proposal for the projects more in terms of what it would do for the customer. Typically, when you're re-architecting, you improve some speed. It's not just about making the code more efficient. Or it's just, and as long as you're always looking at it from a customer experience point of view, which is what a FinTech is about, right? I mean, you're improving customer experience, then you'll always people will find the budget, the resources to make some of this happen. And frankly, in my opinion, if it's not going to make an impact on the customer experience, I think that cost can be borne with, because you are trying to innovate and grow really fast. That's just my personal opinion. But
just to add on that. So we were also speaking with one of the clients which was talking about infra ops. In the sense, I think you were talking about similar lines where internally when we are trying to make a change, it actually gives me a to estimate what is the cost change which will have, how much of 3x, 4x of dollars you would end up spending. So that's a good one. I'm just trying to add to what you said.
I think just building on top of whatever has been said, right? So see, in addition to all of this, so one other aspect that at least we look at how to bring down the cost is making sure that we don't, as companies grow, you will see overlapping functionality all over. Right? So this thing does 3 things and this thing, the other 3 things, but 2 of them overlap, so you end up building this thing again, and both of them consume significant amount of infrastructure. Right? So, but rethinking that, rationalizing your canonical services and making sure that your entire stack is actually built in the most optimal way is another way of looking at how you can actually reduce your infrastructure. Right? So you will see that often when we are trying to grow, our first instinct is to just go building something new, while 50% of it might already be available. Right? So cost is another way of adding cost. You end up duplicating data, all of these things. I think carefully looking at all of this might significantly reduce the cost.
Hey, so welcome Chaitra to the discussion. We were discussing cost of cloud and how to optimize it.
Oh my God.
We finished covering, I think, the regulatory part and the cyber security part, but I mean, maybe Vidya, you can finish and then I'll go to Chaitra. Yeah.
So, I welcome Chaitra. No, I just wanted to add one more thing to this cloud, the cost of clouds, right? So, a different perspective. When you start as a startup, everything is within your control. You're into the free tier, slightly better. But specifically, at least two major clouds, they bring up new products which exactly do what the old ones were doing, and they have new names for this, right? And for example, there was this AWS OTP service. They said, no, we don't provide that support for that anymore. A couple of OTPs were dropping, just as an example. They said, move to pinpoint. Now you have to go and read up what is pinpoint. That's number one. Number two, if you go, you're on a business support plan, you're on the highest support plan, and you go and talk to the solution architects of all the major clouds, they, I'm sorry to say this, they just know what is written on the documentation. And the documentation itself is a nightmare, because it's like you do a tree traversal there. You have everything is a HTML link. And every HTML link goes to several other HTML links. Only two HTML links finally. You keep on traversing, and by then you're like, you've lost your whatever the initial energy. Now there's a whole set of businesses like system integrators in the good old days who actually make money out of exactly this, which is to bring down how the cloud costs, only because the owners themselves, they are not able to make sense out of it, and they take a margin out of this. Now the clue or the signal for all these major cloud companies is, are you going to encourage these so-called intermediaries out here who are going to help you do the cost cutting, or do you want to introduce that itself as AI, which they have one ChatGPT that will go through my stack and tell me where I'm using more. We do get this fancy mails, trust as advisor, savings plan, all that. None of them are useful. So I think there is surely a gap there. The bills are exorbitant, at least in two of the three clouds that I know.
What would you like me to share?
You can cover anything. We've covered from ChatGPT to FinTech to the industry to regulation, your opening thoughts of where we are. This is your second startup.
Right?
Yeah.
So, after payroll, AWS is my second biggest line item on my balance sheet, right? So, it is definitely a huge concern. And I was recently invited to speak at AWS conference, and I shared this with the people over there. They reassured me saying that they acknowledge that currently there's a gap. The first 1-2 years they give you these 100,000 free credits which you can use. And I think the big trick they play on the startups is they say that it's valid only for 1 year. But reality is you can extend it. Like I know startup founders who are, I think all of you are tech engineer, like hands-on engineering people, right? I'm not. So I didn't know this, but I discovered this, that you can actually extend that 100K to a good 100K ka validity for, I know a startup, Kisht, which is extended for 3 years. So there is a infinite extension in some sense that they actually give you. But they didn't tell us that, and my head of engineering, they didn't know this. So we thought that, and so they, they say, no, aaram se phail ke baithna. That's what these people did, right? And shuru mein we didn't even need those services, because we're a financial services company and we were integrating into BSC. That whole thing took like a crazy amount of time. So we ended up using our 100K before we were even materially live to everyone in our alpha stages itself. So I talked to these people about it, and since then we have now become very on top of AWS at least. We know all the hacks that they have. We found a great account manager. He helps us figure out where else can we get free credits, etc. But what they told me is currently startup program hai, enterprise ke liye they give you discounts on your bills. Like after you cross, I think 40, 50 something $1,000 billing per month. But beach mein, right, like which is where currently Salt is at, where that transition between here to that billing, that think about it as anywhere between $10,000 dollars per month to $50,000 per month. There is no support from AWS, at least in terms of discounting, or they are saying they're creating a program for that because they acknowledge that that's a gap and they're going to give some cost help over there. So let's all keep an eye out for it whenever it comes. If there's a place, let us also know. But the other thing I realized through this, talking to a lot of AWS experts, is if I were to go back and do some of these things differently, right? Certain services I could have hosted locally, like on a literally, a physical server in our office connected to the net, right? And certain things I could have used, only certain things, put it on AWS, and plan your microservices such that, like, keep that AWS cost as a background thought in mind and actually build KPIs for your engineering senior leadership around it. Those are things I would have done differently if I had gone back and set up alerts. Like we lost $20,000 of credits in literally 1 month because Glue just, consumed it and nobody was looking and there was no alert set up.
So Glue is again another superset on a lot of small services.
Yes.
Exactly the point I was making.
I know.
You have to know what the new product is, and is it just the same thing that the other smaller ones are doing? I mean, there are such fancy names and new things,
and engineers, especially the young ones, are very curious about it. They want to use it.
Yeah, one thing, a few things I wanted to add was, I think it's a rich kid with poor kid mentality, right? Like, so we would like to be like poor kids. So we take it back to the developers. So yesterday, Infra had posted saying, if you need logs for 30 days, it's going to cost you $15,000 more, right? Do you want it or do you want it for 5 days, right? In practice, I don't think we are going to debug a production issue after 5 days.
But your regulatory guys will ask.
No, that we have it in S3, we archive it in S3, we can query it. So we're saying you have the logs, it might not be as user-friendly after 5 days. And we took it to everyone. We put it on Cache Tech channel, and no one has said they wanted more than nothing because now they understand the cost, right? So again, right, I think that's a good way for us to say cost is not finances or engineering heads problem, but all of us, let's behave like poor kids. And I think the manufacturing industry and all, the cost of goods sold, they look at it with magnifying glass, right? And I've read stories that Nirma transported their powder for free because the Syntec tank was, space was there, right? Wow. So he transported that, and that's how he cut the price of the thing, right? So the same thing for us. If our cost of goods is going to increase, our price is going to increase, and they're going to leave to some of our competitors, which we don't want. So it's in business interest also to cut down the cost, right? So we take this all to the team, and I think that's helping, and it's a KPI. Weekly we review. I think security issues and cost is what we want to go down. Everything else should go up. So we review it every week, and I think that's started to have some benefit.
Absolutely. Like, that's the thing we have also started doing. So after that Glue episode, the one good thing that came out of it was that we're still a 10% engineering team, but one of them has been told to just monitor AWS costs to start with. And like you said, this unit transaction, the COGS, it's very hard for us because we sell mutual funds, we sell gold, we have a products that are non-monetizable, a budgeting tool and a psychometric tool, etc. So I think for the first time last month, I had a conversation with the engineering team and I explained this to them. If mutual fund pay, we sell direct mutual funds, we don't make any money. So I need to know exactly one checkout flow, what is the cost of AWS. Let's come up with proxies for the equivalent of, the closest equivalent of COGS. Right? And so anything that's non-monetizable can be, the AWS guy gave me this idea, why don't you, Google will give you another $100,000 of credits or 200,000, why don't you put some of your services on there? So a lot of this little bit of DevOps circus, and I think orientation on a weekly basis, same thing. Today in stand-up, every weekly stand-up, we talk about cost. And we make it the engineer's problem, not, as you said, finance. Yeah, that's working very well.
By the way, what you experience is not unique. I ran my own startup and I had a developer run a bill of $6,000 on his own in 1 month. So it happens. Developers get excited and you can't stop them. And yeah, it's a tough one to figure out. It's become more complex now.
we've managed to reduce AWS cost by 40% since we started all these little
Hacks.
things. Yeah.
Do you account for this example AWS cost and the cost of customer acquisition? Like one person comes into your whatever product or platform, the conversion might be just 60%, but you actually have paid for this every footfall, and AWS cost or Google cost is quite a big part.
So that's what we are moving towards. It's a complicated thing. Like I was just now sharing that different services, certain, like if I sell gold, I make a revenue on it, right? There it's easier for me to attach a AWS or a service provision, tech cost to it, which includes largely AWS. But for some of the other things, it's a little harder because people traversing through the web pages, trying out different free tools.
And they can be put in the marketing kit as well.
Yeah, but we're trying. So it's hopefully in 3 months I'll be there.
So I have just one final question to ask you. Maybe Vidya, I'll start with you. This is more from, if you look at from a threat landscape point of view, right? I think since we are all technology-driven companies, so from a cyber crime perspective or from a threat landscape point of view, how do you keep your organization risk-free? In the sense, cyber risk-free, right? I know it's a very high-level question, but however, any tips and tricks which you are following internally or which can be shared across the team? How do you keep yourself risk-free from a cyber perspective?
Most of that I think Ramkumar and Sujay, many others said that. So, but I want to bring perspective. Surely, we need to take care of the InfoSec pieces.
Yeah.
So we have about 18 vulnerability assessment and pen tests in a year. So that itself, it's a headache, but you have to, it's a necessary evil. That takes care of the fact that we are InfoSec ready at all points of time. But I want to bring in one perspective which we didn't talk about, which is contractors. When you do contracts, subcontracting them for either software development or marketing or ads or whatever, you have to design from an InfoSec perspective, which is the InfoSec, the CTO, and the business together. What is it that we are going to expose to them? And it's, the code is going to lie on their laptop. The marketing content is going to lie on their laptop. But somebody, and you have no control over their endpoints. But that's okay. Is it okay? Yeah. If it is okay, now how are you going to merge it? Now, I don't think the main company can do all the time the job of merging it into your main thing. At some point, the scalability is going to be an issue. We are going to tell them, we are going to expose these Git repositories for you. You won't merge it inside yourself. Then, how are we going to control what they can see, what they are merging? It's a combination between who's going to do the hard work of merging and doing the reviews, including the code reviews. Yeah. Someone said there was a breach, right? And the breaches actually happen because of holes in these kind of processes, not really the main ones where we talk in our InfoSec speeches, right? Don't keep your password on the table, it's not due to that, it's actually due to these weak links. The second one is, we do talk about education and awareness to all the employees, but we have to be cognizant of the fact that, if you see the generation, right now a software generation is 5 years. Every 5 years the generation is changing. The latest generation, they are so happy, so willing to share every app with an analyzer. For example, there are analyzing softwares that go through your expenses and recommend stuff for you. There are analyzing ones who automatically go and invest for you, and so on and so forth. And they are so okay with that culture. Now it's the same set of the latest, youngest generation who is also doing these whether it's content development or software development or anything else. Now, how do you actually tell them that here it's very different? They have to think about the controls right from the start, which all my friends here told that. I think so. These are the things to build upon. It's difficult, but some of the pipelines you have to be really careful, other than the regular ones.
Yeah, so and break it into 4 or 5 pillars for this, right? So first you start looking at access. So how do you make sure that your organization and your applications, you have sorted the access problem, right? So just similar to what I was saying, that like there are people in your company today, they might be, and some of it is actually people like sabotage, right? So you need a very robust access management, and that is like time bound, like expiring actions, and constantly looking at also, are you providing access on a need to know basis, right? So you don't provide blanket access to everybody. So that is the first pillar that we have to look at. Secondly, I think Sujay was saying, how do we constantly educate our engineers on the aspect of cybersecurity? While I totally agree that this education is important, I also feel that tech can solve this, right? So see, at the end of the day, not everybody is an expert in cybersecurity, right? So they are focused on their application, their business, whatever goals that they have to deliver, and you can instill a certain level of awareness in them. But it is important that we have a robust set of tools, and these days in the industry there are many third-party solutions that are coming out which make it easier for you to have a 360-degree view of what's going on in your system, whether it is people having access to various things, how data is moving and things like that, right? So how do you take advantage of technology to make sure that you're well protected, right? Now, after this, there is a detection mechanism. So, fine, you did all of that. It's still possible that something still went wrong because that is the nature of this game, the police thief kind of a thing. So no matter what you do, there's always somebody trying to take it, right? What kind of controls you have in place to detect it as quickly as possible so that the damage is contained, right? So you have to look at it from a detection perspective. Here again, technology plays a role. AI, ML plays a big role. So you have to have consistent controls over there. Education and awareness becomes a fourth pillar, right? So see, for example, PayU works with a lot of our merchants, right? So we ourselves might provide enough provisions to make sure that we're protecting our merchants from any fraud. But if the merchant is not doing what is recommended, if we share certain keys and they are not safely storing those keys and it's easily accessible and there's only so much you can do about it, right? So thereby it becomes very important that we work closely and that awareness is constantly given to our ecosystem as well to make sure that they are not vulnerable and that in turn can kind of impact everybody else. And finally, like everybody spoke, there is an audit mechanism, right? So we being a process company, we kind of go through two kinds of audits. One is process internal audits, which is a fairly stringent set of controls that we have, and then we have the regulated bodies which also conduct a bunch of audits. So that kind of helps you give further awareness. For example, recently we did something called as a simulation of crisis, right? So where basically our security team just brought all of us in a room and played out a scenario saying that what if this happens, and they kind of have all these worst case kind of scenarios I never thought about it, but still. So that gives you a reality check in terms of how prepared you are for when something like this happens, and what are your protocols to overcome that, right? So these are the 5 dimensions that I will.
I think the last point you was saying, Nandra, I think is in general security loopholes comes from internal than from external. I think I feel our team knows a lot more loopholes than any other hacker. They'll always take more time. I think that the last thing with the SOC thing, if we review that internal security and pay good attention to that, I think that is a real driver of that versus any of the other things actually. Yeah. Just to add to all the great things you said, actually, if we can also formulate a SOC and NOC policy, like how do you run a security operations center, or when a breach or some kind of internal thing was notified, how transparent we are as an organization, how much we are encouraging people to bring it to our notice and our customer/merchants notice. That brings a lot more transparent thing to the thing. The trust will become a lot better. And even the reaction to any known incident can be much better. I think you covered pretty much everything. Yeah.
Just wanted to add one thing here. So I think the others laid it out very beautifully in terms of how to manage security. But often the security risk, particularly personally identifiable information, also rests with the customer. So helping customers protect their own data in a very simple, easy way also kind of becomes, I think, a FinTech's responsibility, right? Helping them figure out that they should keep their mobiles locked, for instance, even some simple things. And we often find that customers are the ones where the leak of the data happens. So, right, because I think it's easy to do the things that we need to do, or I won't say easy,
but it's much more in our hands to do the things that we have to do. But what customers do, and I think someone talked about how the customers today are so different, the younger generation is different in terms of how they manage their data, but helping them understand the repercussions of some of the data, particularly if you're managing their wealth, of that becoming public or that others having easy access to it, is also, I think, a fintech's responsibility.
Can I ask a question? But I'm very, because my startup is, we've been live to the masses for only 3 months now, fully, as a product, right? Though we've been building for a lot longer than that. At what point in our journey should I be making security? Like, is there a scale? Like, what has worked for other people? Like, I would really like to know.
In fact, just before you came, we were talking about that point from me. So, see, because of the space that we are in, it becomes important that I think
from day zero.
So the basics will be there, right? But I'm talking about like using, let's say, penetration testing, like the audit mechanisms, etc. So currently we have the basics of security are sorted, but sophisticated ones that...
Because if you don't do that, like as a practice from day one, your existence itself is questionable these days, like because of the regulators being...
So I'll give you a benchmark that helps. Don't ask me the logic for it. Maybe 1,000 transactions, I don't know, period 15 days or a month. That's the time for you to invest in code review tools like checkmarks or SonarQube or that kind of thing, and start BAPT with someone with an auditing firm who are friendly, who will also advise you on how to use it. These two things should take care of most things.
Thank you.
You wanted to ask something?
Yes. So it is totally depend how many fraud transactions you can handle. Like you starting like you want to handle like 5 to 10 transactions, 4 transactions. It totally depend on us how much risk we can take. And second thing that I want to add in this part like fraud or like I don't have any data, but what I feel almost more than 50% these fraud transactions are happening through the customers only, like OTP sharing, like I think you know the Tamkara fraud Jamtara fraud. So that so almost like 70-80% population of that village is doing the same thing. Like they are not even 10 pass. Or they are doing...
No, so, in fact, I was talking to this PhonePe CEO earlier this week. So he was telling me that, apps can detect where the source of fraud is, right to the last PIN code. But he said these Jamtara type people have a lot of political patronage in UP, Bihar, and also it's really difficult.
Yes, that it like politicians are protecting them.
Yeah, exactly. That's what he said.
पकड़े जाते हैं तो उनको बचा लेंगे.
But he said it's like an organized call center.
Yes,
50 लोग बैठ के call करते हैं.
Definitely, they are much expert. Even there are a lot of trainers. They are like educating people how to talk.
Yeah.
Yes. Even.
No, so his mom lost some 50,000 rupees through one of these calls, and they figured out the village in UP or something, and then the cops from Delhi went there, and then they figured out that it's not going to work because you have to kind of go to the local MLA or something like that. I think they decided.
Yeah. There is full hierarchy like a MNC. Even there are trainers. Yes. Even there is a certain terms and condition also to use those numbers, mobiles, all the things.
So best is to hire those folks.
Yeah, definitely we should act. So just I want to share one.
No, I don't think you can pay them as much as you.
So just
they're making way more now.
I'm sharing one incident. So initially in Bank Sathi, so there is a like auto withdrawal facility for our advisors, and we are using Razorpay or Paytm in that. So so there was a bug in the profile upload section. So I'm not from the tech side, but I understand tech. So वहाँ like option था कि they can upload any file and they come in the database and withdrawal around, like they change the amount in database and then auto withdrawal. They withdrawal around like 2.5 lakh. But through the cyber security and we found that person. He was 14 years old boy only from Gujarat.
Wow.
But now he is doing like all these checks and all for us. He's working for us. Now we are paying continuously to him.
Catch me.
Yes. But उसके बाद कभी कुछ गलत नहीं हुआ, उसने होने नहीं दिया.
We did that at Simple. My previous startup.
Yeah.
Because it was credit, right? And there's no KYC, nothing involved in getting the 2,000 rupee. For 500 rupee credit, the amount of circus people were willing to go through was just mind blowing. They would buy new SIM cards. They would. So there was like, and then we had to. It's always like you said, chore police types, and your algorithms are trying to catch up. And then what we did, which worked for us, we created like until then the data science team, no offense, but they believed that algos will solve everything. But then we realized that algos need to be also supplemented with human monitoring. So we created in the risk team, in addition to data science, human eyeballing, like sampling, just to make sure everything is going fine, nothing looks suddenly, because we saw that certain transactions we would get SKU level data, like Maggie. Why would somebody want to buy so much Maggie, right? Something is going wrong. So I think that was the chore police mechanism.
Interesting.
Yeah, we always say that like fraudsters are always going to be ahead, regardless of lenders, because they're doing that full time.
Yeah,
we're doing this like maybe 10% of the time.
Should we wrap? I mean, wonderful discussion. Maybe Naveen can close. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, folks, there's a place called Mira Road in Bombay. Come visit it. You'll find all these people. I think that's the ground zero for training of all these fraudsters and stuff. So maybe we'll do a campus visit.
We'll do it there.
Maybe we do like a recruitment campus like right? We should do a round table with them. No, we should do a round table with them, as Chaitra said. Trade tricks.
They might teach you guys more.
Of course.
Okay, thanks. This is fantastic. Thanks, Sandeep. Thank you, Chandra. I think now I guess you've given her enough ammunition to write a beautiful story and an article. Let's see. We'll all have to kind of be in touch with her. Please.
Yeah. In fact, let me plug our own events. So, Money Control, we are doing a FinTech Summit in Mumbai next month, and I'd love for all of you to come for it. I think Chaitra, my colleague Priyanka, was in touch with you. So I'll, get in touch. And Network 18 is also doing an India Startup Conclave in April in Bangalore. So again, I will invite all of you, please come. And I'm so happy to see so many women in the room in FinTech, because we struggle to get women speakers. So, well done.
So if you ever struggle, please reach out to me.
Yes.
On this group of, like, one of the most discussed, or one of the topics that causes most outrage on my group, which is called
Manners.
Founders Gang, is manners. And because we have so many FinTech, and generally so many women entrepreneurs in this country, and so many FinTech entrepreneurs, no shortage of it in any.
Please add me to your group. No, I mean, side by side, I'll get stories.
That's why an Indian person cannot be on that group.
So, one last thing. We'll take a nice group photograph in front of this. And what we're doing next is we're going down to the pub, the lounge. So I think we're all thirsty and hungry. So we'll catch up over there. And I think you'll get better stories after 2 weeks.
The real ones.
Come, I think what I suggest is people 6 feet and above will stand in the back row, and people 6 and below will stand.
Ready?
Smile again.
Sujay, come stand in the front side. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, this is very khali.
As a